We wish you great rock and roll dancing in the future and enjoy. In the cradle hold, please note the height that the women's legs reach and the man's leg positioning. With the American spin, as it is shown, will be used many times during the program. With the rock back, you watch for the shift in body weight while this step is in progress. In the large rock back, again watch the shift in body weight and the larger stance that the woman takes. With the palm grip, the interlocking hands of this grip needs to be understood for successful lifts. And in the thumbs up hold, the position of the thumbs up allows for a smooth release. Here with the hook and hand grip, it is important not to let the fingers spread apart in this hold when pressure is applied, or your partner could be dropped. In the wrist hand grip, the hold needs to be firm as great stresses are in play when used in the lifts. With the overlapping hand grip, you have a choice of which you would prefer, but the interlocking fingers are preferred. Facing each other with the man's left hand holding the woman's right hand, the woman then squats down, keeping her back straight, as the man kicks his right leg over the woman's head, whilst maintaining his hold on the woman's right hand. His foot passes over her head and is placed back onto the floor. He now collects the woman's left hand with his right hand. Note crossing his right hand under his left hand. The man then pulls the woman forward and straightens his back. As the woman passes through the man's legs, the man uncrosses his arms, forcing the woman to turn a half-turn clockwise to finish standing and facing each other again. The man pushes the woman into an American spin. On completion of the spin, the partner's left hands lock together in a thumbs-up hold. The man keeps his legs slightly apart, allowing the woman to pass under. As the woman passes through the legs, he places his right hand behind his back to collect her right hand as she passes through. The man, now holding her right hand, raises his right hand behind his back and giving a quarter turn to his right, lifting the woman to a standing position. From partners facing each other, the man pulls the woman into a straddle position. Then, using an overlapping hand grip behind her waist, lowers her to the floor. The woman extends both arms back until they touch the floor. The man can assist by allowing her weight to be supported by his thighs. When finished, the man pulls her up again and allows her to slide off into the standing position. With the man's left hand holding her right hand and their arms extended, the man pulls the woman towards him. Then, dropping his left arm so that it passes around her waist as she comes in, whilst holding his left hand behind her back and slightly to her left side, positioned just a little below the waist. As this is achieved, he extends his left leg, left and behind. As she stops against his left arm, it is important that she places her right hand on his left shoulder. He then bends down, placing his right hand behind her and under her buttocks, then scooping her over his left arm, which he uses as the pivot point. As she passes over, he must gain full height to keep the woman from colliding with his left leg or body. Starting with dance partners facing each other's right-hand side whilst holding each other's right hands, a rock back and pull together is performed, and both place their right arms under each other's right armpit until their respective right shoulders are touching. Both then bend their right arms at the elbow whilst bringing their hands up until they touch the back of their partner's right shoulder. The man, then extending his left leg forward, swings the woman slightly across his front and down towards the floor. The woman then extends her left arm back until it touches the floor, and she tilts her head back as far as she can at the same time, completing the move. The man puts the woman into an American spin in a clockwise direction. At the completion of the turn, both left hands connect in the thumbs-up hold. The woman then jumps up a little, raising her right knee, and he then puts his right arm under her right leg at the knee, locking his right hand up at his right shoulder. The woman, now supported by the right leg and her left hand, drops her head to the floor, extending her left leg to the roof. The man must ensure that his head is up and his back is straight. To return to the upright position, he lowers his right arm and at the same time pulls the woman up sharply with his left arm. Facing each other, the man's left hand holds the woman's right hand in a firm palm grip. Both do a rock-back step. He then pulls her forward sharply, and at the same time, he puts his right arm around her waist. As she jumps, he lifts her onto his right hip. When on the hip, the man leans forward, extending his left leg a little in front of his body, and lowers the woman so that she rests on his right thigh. Her right leg is straight, and a little over his head, pointing in the direction where he is facing. To return to the standing position, the man pulls up with his left hand while supporting the woman around the waist and lifting with his right arm. Facing each other, holding hands out in front and in a hook hand grip, the man leads the woman into a cuddle position whilst maintaining the hand grip. The woman falls directly forward as if to crash into the floor on her face. After dropping about 18 centimetres, she spins half a turn clockwise, forming an angle of about 30 degrees to the floor whilst arching her head back and allowing her arms to straighten. To counterbalance this move, the man extends his left leg slightly in front, looks up and leans back to take the weight of the woman with his spine straight. The man pulls sharply upwards with both arms to return the woman to the standing position. The man gives the woman a right-hand lead spin clockwise. When she has turned half a turn with her back to him, the man extends both arms under her armpits, lowering the woman as if to sit her between his feet. Before she sits on the floor, the man pulls her back to the standing position. Then he moves in closer to the woman, allowing her to drop until her shoulders are at his waist. Then he swings her in a clockwise direction, while shifting his weight to counterbalance and lifting his right leg to allow her to pass under. He then lifts his left leg, allowing the woman to pass under, counterbalancing as she goes. After this sequence is repeated, the man then walks in a very tight clockwise circle at least twice, while counterbalancing the motion of the woman and raising her to the standing position. The man gives the woman a right-hand lead spin clockwise. When she has completed half a turn and her back is to him, he extends both arms under her armpits. Then he lowers the woman while stepping backwards until she forms an angle of about 45 degrees with the floor. Raising his left leg and stepping over her in a clockwise direction, the woman keeps her body straight, so that she turns in a clockwise direction whilst he steps over her. On completion, she should be facing the floor. Then, stepping over the woman once more, he raises her to the standing position again. Facing each other, the woman takes a large rock-back step with her right leg, then throwing herself up into a cradle position held by the man. He then rotates his upper torso to raise her legs high up over his left shoulder. Then, swinging the woman's body across from left to right to gain the maximum momentum, whilst holding the woman around the waist with his right arm, he passes her around and over his back. Then, pointing his left arm to the floor in front of his left foot, after releasing the woman, his right arm should point to the roof. Facing each other and holding hands with arms extended out to the sides, the man and the woman both step to the left and forward. He then raises the woman's right hand over his head and behind the neck. At the same time, raising his right hand, he passes her left hand over her head and behind her neck, allowing their right hands to slide down each other's right arm, on reaching the wrists and clasping into a wrist-hand grip. The woman then drops to the floor in a circular clockwise path. As she approaches the floor, the man has to step over her to allow her body to pass, and leaning back to counterbalance her weight. She then turns her shoulder sharply towards the man to assist her to rise to the standing position. Facing each other, the man pulls the woman in with his left hand, and catching her around the waist with both hands, he lifts her up to sit on his right hip. She should ensure that her legs are as straight as possible. He then swings the woman out in front to repeat the move onto the left hip. The man then swings her out again, and she opens her legs to catch the man around the waist. When she is secure on the man's waist, he then bends forward to rest the woman on the front of both his thighs. The man completes the move by swinging the woman out and back to a standing position. Leading the woman with his right hand into a spin, the woman takes a half a turn in a clockwise direction, and when she is in front and facing the same direction as the man, he places both hands on her waist. She then places her hands on his wrists. Both then bend down, and the woman then jumps up as he lifts her to his left shoulder. Facing each other with arms extended and holding hands, the man's thumbs are positioned on the back of the woman's hands. Both rock back, and each does a half turn until they are back to back. The man squats down a little, bending his knees up so that his hips are below and under the woman's buttocks. He then pulls his arms forward, rolling the woman over his back, during which time the woman draws her knees up to her chest to create the momentum which carries her over. Both partners must tilt their heads to the right to allow clearance as the woman passes over. The hand grip is maintained as the woman lands to provide support and balance if she lands off center. facing each other and offset, so that if they walked forward, their right shoulders and arms would just collide. The man extends his left arm across his chest. The woman extends her right hand directly in front, whilst he holds the woman's right hand with their thumbs up. The man then pulls her sharply forward, whilst placing his right arm at waist height to stop her from going past. As she hits the man's right arm, her momentum and jump cause her to pivot over his right arm and head, landing in front. The man and woman must maintain a strong hold of his left hand with her right hand to give support and lift as she travels in an arc over the man. Coming from an American spin, he gives the woman a half-turn clockwise. When she is facing the same way as him and in front, he places both hands on her waist. The woman then places both hands on his wrists and both bend down. As they come up, the woman jumps slightly backwards. The man lifts until his arms are straight. The woman then hooks both legs tightly around his waist. He leans back and releases his hold of her waist. He brings both hands up under the woman's armpits. The woman then extends her arms out and to the sides and arches her head as far as possible. The man then, stepping forward on his left leg, bends at the waist, lowering the woman to the floor. He must keep looking up, as the woman may strike the floor. To finish the move, he raises her up again, where she releases her legs and swings forward to fall in a drop. The man then raises her to the standing position. The man spins the woman to his right in a clockwise direction, holding her left hand. When she reaches the end of their combined arm lengths, the woman rolls back in an anti-clockwise direction and across the front of the man. As she passes, the man collects her right hand and spins out as before, but to the left. She then rolls back to the man in a clockwise direction. He does not let go of her right hand, and as she rolls inwards, her right arm wraps around her waist. When she is facing and in front of the man, she stiffens her body and allows him to lower her between his legs. He then pulls up on her right arm, supporting the woman with his right arm around her waist as she spins clockwise. The man then lifts the woman to a standing position using his right arm. Holding the woman's right hand with his left hand and facing each other, he pulls the woman towards him, releasing his left hand hold and places both hands under the woman's groin. Then, lifting her up onto his chest, her legs go over his shoulders. The man places his hands on her stomach, pushing her back and over to the floor. As the woman's head goes between his legs, he closes his legs firmly on the woman's head. The woman then reaches through her legs with both hands, where he collects her hands and pulls her up into a standing position through rolling her across his thighs and chest. Holding the woman's right hand with his left and facing each other, he pulls the woman towards him, releasing his left hand hold and placing both hands under the woman's groin. He then lifts her up and over his head. When she has passed over, he then turns around half a turn to face the same direction as the woman. Then, placing his arms out in front and under the woman's arms, he lowers her to the floor. He then takes hold of her hands, and she puts her legs under his arms from front to back. He then raises the woman sharply to a standing position, releasing her hands and catching her under the arms. Facing each other and pulling the woman in his left hand and catching her around the waist with both hands, he then lifts her to sit on his right hip. The woman must make her legs as straight as possible. He then swings her out in front and repeats the move to his left hip. Then, swinging the woman out again, the woman opens her legs to catch the man around the waist. When she is secure on his waist, he bends forward to rest her on the front of both his thighs. Then, raising the woman above his head, the woman rests her elbows on the man's shoulders. On this upward movement, the woman keeps her legs bent until the last possible moment. Then she extends her legs and arches her back to reach the 12 o'clock position. The move is completed by the woman dropping back into a straddle position, where the man can lift her into the standing position. Facing each other and holding the woman's right hand with his left hand and pulling her towards him, the woman jumps up and opens her legs to catch him around the waist. When the woman is secure on his waist, he bends forward to rest the woman on the front of his thighs. As he raises her and throws her over his head, the woman dives towards the floor over his back. She catches him around the waist and he puts his left hand behind his back to hook the woman's right leg behind the knee. Then, bending forward to collect the back of the woman's neck with his right hand, he rocks her through his legs to return her to the standing position. Like the last lift, everything is the same until the woman is at the 12 o'clock position. When this point is reached, the man bends his legs, then straightens them to jerk the woman off his shoulders, whilst leaning slightly forward, allowing the woman to drop down behind his back. He catches the woman by her legs as she grabs a hold of his waist. He then puts his left hand behind his back to hook the woman's leg behind her knee. He then bends forward to collect the back of her neck with his right hand and rocks her through his legs to return her to the standing position. Facing each other, the woman bends forward at the waist and he walks a step in to collect the woman under the waist with both hands in an overlapping grip. He then raises her torso up and over his head, which should be tilted to the right, to allow clearance as the woman passes over. Passing over the back, he allows her to slide down his back to the floor. Both have their arms extended to the sides as the woman lands on the floor. Facing each other, the woman taking a large rock back with her right leg, throws herself up into a cradle position to be held by the man. Rotating his upper torso to raise her legs high up over his left shoulder, he then swings her body across his body from his left to right to gain full momentum. Holding the woman around the waist with his right arm, he passes her around and over his back. When she is across the man's back, he hooks his left arm behind her knees and swings her around into the cradle position once again. This move can be repeated 2 or 3 times, depending on the height that the woman can achieve on his back each time around. Facing each other and taking a large rock back step with her right leg, then throwing herself up as if going into a cradle position, the man lifts her up and over his left shoulder to position her so that the small of the woman's back is behind his neck. He completes the move by using his right hand to push her legs around his neck like a scarf in an anti-clockwise direction. Catching her in a momentary cradle position, he can push her around again 2 or 3 times as long as she falls into the correct position behind his neck. Facing each other, and the woman taking a large rock-back step with her right leg, throws herself up as if going into a cradle position. The man lifts her up and over his left shoulder to position her so that the small of the woman's back is behind his neck. He then rotates her in an anti-clockwise direction, placing one hand under the woman's right armpit and the other hand up between her thighs to grip her left leg. On positioning her left arm at her left side and her right hand behind the man's left elbow, the man bobs down to gain momentum, then pushes up with his legs and arms at the same time, pushing the woman above his head. All this is done whilst rotating and keeping the woman's centre of gravity above his head. When ready, he bends his head forward and allows the woman to fall behind his neck, completing the move by pushing the woman's legs using his right hand around his neck like a scarf in an anti-clockwise direction, and catching her in the cradle position. Pushing the woman into a clockwise spin as she completes a half turn to face the same direction, he places his left hand in the small of the woman's back and squats down and takes a firm grip of her right ankle. The woman then jumps as high as she can, whilst the man extends his left hand above his head and pushing up with his right hand. As the woman reaches maximum height, she arches her back and extends her arms out for balance. Complete the move by allowing the woman to fall until she sits on his shoulder, then lowering her into the standing position. Facing each other and taking a large rock-back step with her right leg, then throwing herself up as if going into a cradle position, the man lifts her up and over his left shoulder while pushing her with his right hand. He leans forward a little and guides the woman around his back, using his left arm hooking her around the waist. As she passes behind him, she places her left hand on his left shoulder. Her right hand is placed on his right shoulder, and this maintains her position high on his back. As her legs come around to his right side, he twists his body slightly, using his right hand to catch the woman by her right leg just below the buttocks, allowing herself to come around to where he can again push her with his right hand and force her to go around again to repeat the cycle. Finish this lift by flipping the woman up over his left arm into the standing position at his side or in front.
Darling, I fell head over heels over you. Well, it's a golden rule, yeah. The one makes two. You said you made it at a party on a Saturday night. They said his name was Polly, and you were doing right. One and one makes two. One makes two. Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. Well, darling, I fell head over heels over you. Well, it's a golden rule, yeah. The one makes two. that 1 and 1 makes 2.